So we're here with Stego Industries representatives Moe and Colin. Guys, thanks for coming by. So why don't you tell us a little about the Stego? What is the product, the company, and what do you want from me?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So just to let you know a bit about the company initially, Stego's been around for 26 years now. In that time, we've been fully focused on under slab water vapor and soil gas protection. These are our two residentially focused products, our Stego Home and our Stego Crawl.
Right.
Now, in terms of what we want from you is to help us promote these materials with all sorts of residential construction. I know you focus a lot on passive house projects,
Net zero
construction. So what we're trying to really share, and particularly important for those types of projects, is how important it is to protect the first side of the building. As we know, with those tighter envelopes, less of this moisture of this water vapor is naturally going to leave the built environment. So we want to keep as little water vapor from traveling into the project as possible.
Right. So I think you told me when we were chatting about this, we had a little bit of a debate about
Sure.
the necessity of having, a vapor barrier under a slab.
Right.
Because the honest truth, I was struggling with, where's the vapor coming from, right? And then we're talking dew points, this, that, and the other thing.
Yep.
And I have a colleague at Toronto Metro University who schooled me one night on it, and I went, okay. So long and short of it, best practice is the conclusion we came to is if you want to cover your butt, always specify having some type of vapor barrier underneath the concrete slab.
That's right.
And didn't you tell me one time as well, a lot of this came about because once upon a time they were using types of glues, especially on commercial slabs, and then there was a change to remove all the VOCs from them to
Right.
make them non-solvent based.
Exactly.
And then what was happening was you'd have a nice parquet floor down on top of a concrete slab without that vapor barrier, and what was happening? Your floor was delaminating.
Exactly. So what we experienced in back in 1999 in the States and in 2010 in Canada, our environmental protection agencies made the flooring industry as a whole switch from solvent-based adhesives, which, like I said, very high in VOC content, over to water-based adhesives. And solvent-based adhesives performed extremely well, but obviously we don't want all that VOC content in the indoor environment. It's not healthy. So pretty much overnight, the flooring industry had to switch over, and simply a solvent-based adhesive has a much higher pH tolerance than a water-based adhesive. So what we were finding is as we hit dew point and we experience that condensation, water is what we call hygroscopic. So it attracts alkaline salts back up into the concrete, pushing the pH level of the concrete well beyond the pH tolerance of a water-based adhesive and leading to a lot of adhesive failure and flooring failure. So yes, that was certainly
And phone calls.
Yeah, exactly. And phone calls and many insurance claims. We've heard stats saying that prior to the change, on average in North America, year to year, we were looking at roughly $200 million annually related to flooring failures.
Wow.
That number ballooned to roughly $2 billion per year following this change in the adhesive. So we've made up a lot of that gap thanks in large part to the use of high performance vapor barrier protection as opposed to generic poly or CGSB poly, which doesn't perform as well for a number of reasons, but most typically because of the recycled content in it.
So what is the difference then when you go with a 6 mil poly I can buy off the shelf at Home Depot, and then I noticed that this comes in two different thicknesses, 10 mil and 15 mil.
That's right.
So why do you need to go 15 mil?
So a couple questions there. First, I'll say the reason why you want to go 15 mil over 10 mil, 15 mil would be considered the gold standard.
Right.
So in terms of the water vapor permeance that we're always referring to in terms of the performance of the product, in our 26 years as a company spending all that time developing our suite of products, but always continually testing all the other materials available on the market, we've never found a product at a thinner gauge than 15 mils that is able to have the water vapor permeance that's considered a vapor barrier rather than a vapor retarder, as well as having a Class A strength, which just gives it the best chance of surviving installation. And finally, maintaining that permeance level both before and after mandatory conditioning tests.
Of the system.
To mimic the performance while in service.
So we mentioned earlier that I deal with a lot of passive house and net zero projects.
Yep.
You know, one of my passive house clients always specifies the Stego in there. Part of that, besides the air tightness and the vapor barrier, is also for radon.
Right.
So this is a qualified, or this is a radon barrier rated product at the 15 mil? At both?
At both. So all of our materials, whether they're 10 mil, 15 mil, they're all tested and have radon diffusion coefficients.
That's a big word.
Exactly right.
You gonna get that, Mo?
Yeah. Mo's gonna explain it to you because don't put that on me. Yeah, so all of our materials have been tested to see how they perform in terms of blocking radon. So the simple way to look at it is the thicker the material of ours, the better protection you get from radon.
So we have a couple of products here. The Stego Home, which is the one I was flashing earlier.
Yep.
And this one's the 15 mil. And then we have the Stego Crawl. So is there, what's the difference between the two? Where would you use one over the other?
So in terms of where you would use one over the other, Stego Home is meant for under slab installation, where Stego Crawl is specific to crawl space. The main difference between the two is that Stego Crawl is a little bit stronger, a little bit more durable, because whereas Stego Home needs to be strong enough to survive installation. And when I say strong enough, it's incredibly strong. You could back a concrete truck directly on top of it, directly on top of the crushed aggregate subbase.
Try that.
You absolutely should, and you'll get some dimpling in the product, but we test for that too. So you're still going to maintain the performance in terms of low water vapor permeance, as well as radon diffusion. Still with that dimpling. So still an extremely strong, durable product. Stego Crawl is actually a little bit stronger because it doesn't need to just survive installation. It needs to survive people
actually walking on it. Because it's exposed in the crawl space.
Crawling on it, walking on it, storing things on it for decades. So that's the main difference between the two, aside from the color, obviously.
Very good. And it's a great marketing exercise so people can differentiate between the two products.
Yeah.
Very good.
What you're getting generally with a 6 mil poly, one is a very thin material. Obviously, the water vapor permeance is quite low, is quite high. It allows quite a lot of water vapor through it.
It's a retarder, not a barrier.
It's a retarder, yes.
Gotcha.
Now, on top of that, 6 mil poly is almost always generic poly or CGSB poly. And the differences between those two is generic poly is almost always 100% recycled plastic, which sounds great. We want to reduce, reuse, recycle as much as we can in our lives and on our projects whenever possible. But when we're talking about a monolithic membrane, one issue with the recycled content is that you get a lack of uniformity. So in one section of the project, that may have been recycled from fairly strong plastics. Might be durable. It may even block a good amount of water vapor from traveling through it. Whereas on another part of the membrane, or the plastic sheeting, you're now looking at something that maybe was recycled from soft plastics, maybe it was recycled from some flimsy water bottles, and it's going to be quite weak. Maybe allows a lot of water vapor to travel through, so there's a lack of consistency there.
Gotcha.
The second issue is just that because of the recycled content, every time you recycle plastic, it goes through a very intensive heating process. And in that heating process, antioxidants in the plastic are burned off. Same kind of antioxidants that protect our bodies also protect plastic from the elements. So it just makes the material much more subject to degradation And we
That's
find
another
that
big word.
yeah, so the life cycle of the product is just reduced drastically.
And this is important actually when we move towards 2030, in particular in the Greater Toronto area, where they want to have net zero ready residential, and by 2040, I believe net zero ready commercial. They talk a lot about life cycle assessments on the products that are being used, global warming potential, embodied carbon content, and they all want to have these environmental product declarations as well, right? So this is important information. You can, I guess, hit the minimum code and pass the inspector's, visit, and then 10 years later, whoever is in that space, maybe they have a problem. Whereas if you use a Stego product, it's good forever. All in all, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming by and speaking with us today. I thought that was very informative, and even I learned something, and I thought I knew it all already. But it's what you learn after you know it all that counts.
Absolutely. It's our
All right,
pleasure
guys.
to come.
So until next time, thank you very much, guys.
For sure. Absolutely. Thanks for having us.